This is Mark McCluskey with Pat Murphy Design. I have Pat Murphy here in the house, and she's going to talk about this beautiful one bedroom, one bath that she has redone her style. Go ahead, Pat.
Okay, well, Mark and I have kind of gotten into a business partnership, and he gave me his condominium to show everyone what we can do. Ultimately, what we're trying to prepare people for is possibly the need to sell, or possibly through COVID, some slackness in the rental area, and how do I revamp that interest in my unit when we might have more supply than we had even a year or two ago. This is really directed for people who don't want to do a total overhaul, which could be in the $30,000 to $50,000 normal range in most interior design
And here
shops.
the labor charge is probably only $2,900, right?
Well, we really have some packages. This would be a starter package of $2,900. Now that's the labor fee, but the beauty of this package is that we're really competing to many of the finer shops in town that charge $5,000 to $7,000 a room. Here, the entire package would be covering your condominium, including potentially even a small sunroom if you have that, or a larger dining room. This is just an example, but this would be an example here of what we've done to Mark's. When I came in here, he had drapes installed, but they were an older style of drapes, and I felt that they were a bit dated to what many people see as the younger quality of the market coming in wanting to pay top dollar for your unit, whether rental or for sale. So what we did, within 1 to 2 days, this is a 14-day package for the most people, but within 1 to 2 days I went ahead and put the new box drape up there, the frame, and then took sizable amounts of fabric from his older drapes and then colorized them with a new panel. This is an example how we sometimes come in and analyze that maybe we can keep some things and put new things in to keep the charges and the fees down. This would be an example of where Mark came up with an idea of painting his dated, old, comfortably well above 2 decades old lampshades. Now here, we, instead of having to have $60 for a new lampshade, we purchased a new lamp shade cover there and then just painted the lamp. So I think it really works well in the whimsical quality that Mark wanted to have, including painting some decorative items here. Now, Mark and I have talked about possibly redoing these sofas, but when he bought them only 2 years ago, he felt that he wanted to at least get another year's life out of them, and I thought that was great. So we just added some decorative pillows that matched the very Caribbean, kind of a whimsical and largely vacation era fabrics.
The kitchen table.
Yeah, the kitchen table, like I said, this was in a very whimsical shape, and bamboo is of course good for the beaches. So instead of getting rid of all of this, we just sanded it and re-shellacked it. Once again, this is a 14-day program. The labor fees are very, very reasonable. And when we get to his bedroom, I'll talk about the pricing of the fabrics.
And I can tell you that these tables here are 32 years old.
Oh yeah.
And the lamps are 32 years
Yeah.
old. This table
Yeah.
here is probably 20 years old, and the chairs are 32 years old.
Now, it could be an example where I would come into your unit and let's say your sofa beds were not up to snuff, they were not considered to be quality, or they were just downgraded. That would be an example where we would be able to consult with you. In that pricing range, we're still talking about reupholstering the sofa, which I did for his Riva Homes, and he's been thrilled with that. But this is the kind of thing, instead of having to purchase a new set of furniture, we would take what you have and then
move it into the
reupholster it.
kitchen.
Yep.
So show them what you did here in the kitchen.
Well, in the kitchen, what we did, Mark had spent a good bit of money on his granite countertops, so he was in better shape than most of the units in this building. But here, he didn't want to go through the expense of new cabinets. What we did, and he's been very, very pleased with them, was we sanded them, stained them, and then shellacked them. Here, we just added some new, very decorative handlebars there, and I think it really, really leads to an affordable, possibility, if that's the case that you find in your condominium. It isn't fabric, but on that particular case, we can be consulted. Here's the same thing. Basically, now Mark came up with this great idea, which I love. It's seafoam green. When you're in vacation areas, you can afford to be whimsical because the couples are coming in, the families are coming in, want to have kind of a vacation resort life. So he chose a very whimsical set of knobs there, and I think they really, really work. Now, this particular set of furniture, when I came here, was extremely worn. It wasn't well maintained necessarily, and it was just needing a facelift there, and I think it really, really works here. This is still in that same 14-day price range. It's a case-by-case thing. It would be something where Mark and I would come in and would say, well, what about this and not this, to keep the pricing within that range. Now, this is an example here of very, very high-end quality fabric, and in COVID, Having waterproof fabrics is very, very important in my mind. This type of fabric does not maintain coughing and sneezing easily. It has a slight waterproof area to it. It's just comfortable fabric. But it's a high-end fabric that we were able to find heavily discounted.
And talk a little bit about B grade versus A grade, and here's a good
Well,
example.
This is a good example. When you go to a fine designer shop like Calico Corners, there's going to be a higher end and a longer time frame for you to get your product to market. Keep in mind, 14 days is extraordinary. This is for people who need to rent or sell fast. When you go into a normal design shop, it could be months long before you're able to have your rental back in your hands to give to a leasing agency. This particular case here would define a B grade. Now here we were able to take a $22 to $26 a yard fabric down to $6.50. The way we do it is I have to kind of go and see what's on the lot sales. It can be in baskets. It can be in
Show
design.
them the seam in the middle.
And then what we do is, instead of having the full amount of fabric, which would be largely, we're talking about 30% of retail here. So we would add another 70% on, not to have this seam here. But this would be an example. It's not noticeable to the renter. It's certainly not noticeable to most people who come in here. And it does not affect your ROI. ROI is so important in today's market, and you want to invest wisely. So we're not going to fool you into thinking that there aren't inexpensive ways to cut
Let's
costs
move into the
and
drapes.
improve ROI. Now here's a series of drapes where Mark had started with the frame. I didn't have to build it. That could be the case in your condominium, in which case we rebatted, redid the entire frame. We also have a small handyman fee to help me get the heaviness of this drape back up. That can be negotiated. But then we had, if you go onto his VRBO site today, you would notice that we almost had a Dixieland kind of a drape that reminded me of the 80s. That would be a very powerfully uncomfortable drape to sell to the markets that are coming in to either rent or buy your properties. As a matter of fact, most people walk into what I had in Mark's condominium say too much work. That's a drape that would have to be professionally taken off, and sometimes they say, what's another opportunity to the realtor? That's not what we want to do. Once they come into this area of the bedroom, which is so important for the families coming in here, they want to feel comfortable and compatible, and they don't want to have to do anything.
Talk a little bit
So
about
this
this
is the way
chair
to do it.
right here.
Now this is another example of a chair that basically started out dated from, I would say, the 80s. And once again, we had to examine it closely for the batting underneath of it, which was acceptable, and then I was able to whimsically create the theatrical effect of a Marilyn Monroe kind of a 1950s era. A lot of diamonds, a lot of beautiful antique looking qualities to this. And it overall, when someone walks into the room, they're not, they're excited by it, they feel that it's complete, and they know that when they go to the realtor and make their deposit, that they can put the room on hold. By having this ease of bringing people into your home and meeting the normal quality for the general population's expectation of a rental, and we're not going to go off on quadrants there, we will frequently have multiple bids. Multiple bids is what we're really looking for you. So what we recommend is that you work with me and Mark on the fabric choices. With an industry experience in this area, my mother taught me how to do it, although I went into telecommunications later on. I'm fully aware of the powerful effect of the commercial world, and that's what I would want to go into the market with you. In it, my long experience in fabrics, I know how to discount deal and how to get you the best price on that fabric. Sometimes we're not sure if it's going to fit, and we'll buy a couple of series of things, and we can work around it being with patchwork quilting. In this particular type of business matrix, it's quite different than going into a specialty shop that is in the $30,000 to $50,000 range. You're coming in with me, working with me to keep the price down to the absolute minimum and have the quickest return to market and given to the realtor to
And that's
sell.
Pat Murphy Design.
And that's what it is.
Thank you very much. And if you'd like more information on this, call Mark McCleskey at 410-956-5050. 410-956-5050, and we'll get you an interview and a
Consultation.
consultation. Thank you.